Yes, that's my understanding. They want to speak to committee before the report comes forward.
Before the report comes forward, because usually it's more advantageous to speak the day of the report when it's on the agenda. I just throw that out there. I'm fine either way. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, to approve the delegation requests? I don't know, should I be reading them off? Sorry. Susan Mammal would like to speak today, and I believe it's about the Greenbelt, right? Because your inclusionary zoning has been withdrawn. Thank you. And John Corbett from Corbett Land Strategies on behalf of the Book Road West Land Owners Group, respecting the draft Greenbelt plan and its potential impact on the Book Road West area. So those are your two delegates today. They will be speaking after the public meetings. May I have a motion, please? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Pasuta, all those in favor? Thank you. With respect to consent items, we will take each one individually. May I have a motion, please, for 5.1? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Pasuta, all those in favor? Sorry, let's go to 5.2. This is the Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee report. 5.2, can we put it on the floor? Yes. Councillor Pearson.
Madam Chair, I'll move it, but I'll move items 1, the recommendation 1, recommendation 2, recommendation 3, and recommendation 4 only.
Okay, so I've got a motion. Have you got a seconder for that?
And second by Councillor Partridge.
Partridge.
Thank you.
So we're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 to approve and just receive 5. May I have? Okay, all those in favor?
Carried.
Carried. Thank you. So that's 5.2. 5.3. This is the Amanda Improvement Initiatives. Thank you. Councillor Partridge. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Green. All those in favor? Thank you. 5.4. This is the York Boulevard Parkade. Jeez, it's going to be a long day. Can I have a motion, please? This is to receive. Thank you. Councillor Skelly. Councillor Pearson. All those in favor? Thank you. Now we're on to 6.1. This is an application to amend the City of Hamilton zoning bylaw number 05200 and zoning bylaw number 6593 for the approval of the draft plan subdivision multi-area employment lands for lands located at 99 Highland Road West, 1603 Rymal Road East, and 665 Pritchard Road. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the zoning bylaw amendments and draft plan of the subdivision, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal that decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the OMB, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of the Ontario Municipal Board unless it's unless there are reasonable grounds to do so. We have written comments right now, I believe. So we have one from Fred Lozani, Chief Executive Officer of Lozani Homes. May I please have a motion to receive the added written comments from Lozani? Councillor Green, Councillor Skelly, all those in favor? Thank you. So is there anyone here from the public here to speak on, this is 99 Highland Road West, 1603 Rymal Road. Going to call once, calling twice. Anyone here to speak for 99 Highland Road and 1603 Rymal Road, and 665 Pritchard Road? 3 times. Thank you. So, Councillor Pearson.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we waive the staff presentation then.
Thank you. I'll just close off
with the ward councillor's indulgence as well.
Thank you. I'm just going to close off the public hearing first, please. Give a motion. Councillor Partridge, Councillor Pasuta, all those in favor? Thank you. So we're going to now defer to the ward councillor. Tom Jackson is here with us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I just want to say, as the ward councillor, very supportive of this application. This will provide further employment, commercial taxes, industrial taxes up along the Pritchard, Rymal, Highland corridor there, right along the hydro corridor. And yesterday, if my colleagues recall at GIC, you unanimously approved the sale of some lands as well, right adjacent to this property, to allow the expansion of future jobs in commercial and industry to come there. So at a time when we've got lots of good residential going on, this is the type of development we need for the future, and I'm strongly supportive and also anything to do with open space, recreation components have all been accommodated within the staff report, and I'm very pleased that staff's recommending it here today. Thanks for allowing me my comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I have Steve Fraser here for the applicant. Steve, are you in agreement with the staff report? Of course. Thank you. So may I have a motion, please, for 6.1? Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Skelly, all those in favour? Carried. Thank you. We're on now to 6.2. This is an amendment for the City of Hamilton zoning bylaws 6593 and the City of Stoney Creek zoning bylaws. Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, through the chair, there was a written submission on 6.1. Mr. Lozani's
shoot.
submission would count as
We
a
have
written
new
submission,
rules.
so reasons would need to be provided
We have
for...
new rules. I'm sorry. So, folks, I am looking for the... The submissions made regarding this matter did not affect the decision, would be option 4, as what I would recommend, but that's up to this committee. Which option would you like to approve this? Thank you, Councillor Pearson, Councillor Partridge. The submissions that were made regarding this matter did not affect the decision. Okay, so we've got new rules here, folks, sorry. So back on to where we were. Application for amendment to the City of Hamilton zoning bylaw number 6593 and the City of Stoney Creek zoning bylaw number 3692-92 for land located at 560 Grays Road, Hamilton and Stoney Creek, PED 16158, wards 5 and 10. So, members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person in a public body does not make oral submissions at the public meeting or make written submissions to the council of the City of Hamilton before council makes a decision regarding the zoning bylaw amendments, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person in a public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the OMB unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. We have added written comments, and this one is 6.2I and 6.2II. May I please have a motion to receive the added written comments? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Pasuta, all those in favour. I do know we have people from the public that are here, so we're going to call on Alana Fulford. That's who it is. Thank you. I've got the roadmap. I know what I'm doing now. Didn't earlier, but I do now. Good morning, Alana. You're on.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair and members of Planning Committee. This application is for a zoning bylaw amendment for lands located at 560 Grays Road in Hamilton and Stoney Creek. The proposed amendment will permit the development of a 4-story residential building consisting of 106 dwelling units, 133 below-grade parking spaces, and 44 surface parking spaces. The amendment proposes to rezone the property to the medium-density residential zone in the City of Stoney Creek zoning bylaw with site-specific modifications. As a bit of background, there was a previous application submitted in 2012 that proposed 36 townhouse units. At that time, site servicing concerns were identified with the determination that the proposed servicing strategy had not demonstrated adequate sustainable services for the proposed units. It was subsequently established through further analysis that site servicing could be appropriately addressed, and thus a revised proposal with a new zoning bylaw amendment application was submitted in December 2015, which is before Planning Committee today. The subject lands are located at 560 Grays Road, and they are the block bounded by Grays Road to the west, Francis Avenue to the north, North Service Road, Drake's Drive to the east, and North Service Road to the south. The lands are designated neighborhoods in the Urban Hamilton Official Plan, and the subject lands are presently located within 2 zoning bylaws. The City of Hamilton zoning bylaw, where the lands are zoned agricultural district, and the City of Stoney Creek zoning bylaw, where the lands are zoned highway commercial holding. So the purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application is firstly to remove the portion of the subject lands which are located within the City of Hamilton zoning bylaw and add those lands to the City of Stoney Creek zoning bylaw. And secondly, to rezone the entirety of the property to the medium-density residential within the City of Stoney Creek zoning bylaw. And at that as well, the H historical holding on the property will be removed, or it is removed. It is also noted that Lakeshore Neighborhood Plan Amendment is required. The next series of slides provide some site context through a series of photos of the site. The site is currently vacant. This photo is taken to the west, showing the subject lands and the Grays Road overpass at the back. This photo is also taken to the west and showing the Grays Road and overpass. This shot is taken to the north, showing the subject lands and the existing residential neighborhood to the north on the north side of Francis Avenue. This shot is taken to the south with the QW in the background. And finally, this shot is taken to the southeast, and it is at the intersection of Grays Road and Francis Avenue, so the northwest corner of the subject lands. The concept plan, as I mentioned, is for a 4-story building with 106 dwelling units and above and below grade parking. As indicated on the concept plan shown, the building is oriented towards Grays Road and North Service Road, with surface parking generally located in the middle of the site. The building location and built form that is proposed provides a transition between the existing residential development to the north and the QEW and employment lands to the south. Although the roadways separate the proposed development from adjacent uses, screening and or design features shall be incorporated into the design through the future site plan control application, and this could include establishing focal landscape features adjacent to Francis Avenue that offer further transitional elements between the proposed development and the existing residential neighborhood. I wanted to briefly touch on noise, as some concern was expressed by a community group that the built form of the proposed development could result in increased noise level in the surrounding neighborhood that is generated by North Service Road and the QEW. And while not required of the proposed development, the applicant has committed to extending a proposed acoustical barrier along North Service to connect in to the Grays Road overpass, and this matter will be addressed in detail at the site plan control stage of development. With respect to the zoning bylaw amendment, As I indicated, the property is to be rezoned to medium-density residential within the City of Stoney Creek zoning bylaw. There are 3 site-specific provisions that are proposed. Firstly, to reduce the minimum rear yard for apartment buildings, and that being the area abutting North Service Road. Secondly, to increase the maximum density permitted. And thirdly, to increase the maximum building height permitted. The proposed amendment is considered appropriate for the subject property as it complies with the medium-density residential policies of the Urban Hamilton Official Plan with respect to built form, compatibility, function, and design. The final item I'd like to touch on this morning is the public comments received. To date, there have been 8 letters of correspondence received through the public circulation and 2 additional comments received at the second of 2 community meetings that were held to discuss the merits of the application. Comments can be summarized into the following categories. With respect to traffic and transportation, some submissions were made expressing concerns with respect to the potential traffic generated from the proposed development and safety related to that traffic. Corridor management staff have indicated that potential upgrades to the road infrastructure will be comprehensively evaluated to inform a comprehensive plan for traffic control. That shall include roadway improvements, intersection controls, pedestrian walking facilities, and on-street cycling facilities. The specific details of these upgrades and timing are to be confirmed at the site plan control stage. With respect to alternative modes of transportation, a submission did speak to transit improvements in the area, and the city investigated the feasibility of new fixed bus routes operating along North Service and South Service roads, as well as along Grays Road between Barton and North Service Road. The report concluded that the introduction of either scenario was not recommended at this time based on the existing level of Stoney Creek Trans cab ridership generated in the subject area. Finally, with respect to the environment, there were some concerns expressed around infrastructure and stormwater runoff and impact of the nearby Teal Avenue Pond, which is a pond to the northeast of the subject lands. The proposed development will necessitate a new stormwater management system, and this will result in no net impact to the Teal Avenue Pond, with water levels remaining unchanged for all storm events assessed. The final item I would just like to touch on is that there was a submission received which spoke to the potential to provide some community benefits in the area. And they were firstly an amenity room within the proposed building that the community could use. Staff have indicated that this is a private matter that would be between the future condo board and the community, and that's beyond the scope of the city's purview. So it would be something that would need to be addressed between those 2 parties. Secondly was a sun shelter that the potential to construct a sun shelter in a nearby park. The applicant advised that they would consider erecting the sun shelter in the park, provided that the cost of this is deducted from the cash in lieu of parkland payment for this development. Now, staff advised that parkland dedication only applies to land dedication or cash in lieu of parkland dedication, and so cannot be used for park development. Further, recreation staff have indicated they are not in a position to support such a proposal at this time. Finally, the submission spoke to a potential to include commercial space within the proposed development, and the applicant has indicated that they are not contemplating a commercial space within the building at this time. So to conclude, staff recommend approval of the zoning bylaw amendment application as the proposal has merit and can be supported as it is consistent with the PPS, with a growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe, and complies with the Urban Hamilton Official Plan. The proposal is considered to be compatible with the existing and planned development in the area and represents good planning by providing a compact and efficient urban form. I would be happy to answer any further questions or any questions that anyone has at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Alana, any questions for staff at this time? Comment?
I want to welcome Elena and thank you very much for a very comprehensive overview of this application. It's been a long time coming, as she mentioned. So I just want
Thank you. This is complicated because our vice chair is Aiden is the third one, so I'm going to ask Councillor Skelly if you could take the chair. I just have a couple of quick questions. Elena, can you please go back to the overview of the whole plan? Thank you. So just quickly, I just want to understand this a little bit better. My understanding is that a review process that comprehensively evaluates a proposal and addresses any site issues may arise, such as servicing, and this is why there was an H holding on a part of this land. It's part of page 20 of 27 in your report. Was this done?
Actually, the H holding is a historical holding.
Yes.
That would have been put in place quite a long time ago, not in relation to the specific issues here.
Okay, so if I read this properly, a portion of the subject lands are presently zoned highway commercial holding zone.
Yep.
And it speaks where to refer to no residential uses are permitted in this zone category. Furthermore, a historical H holding symbol applies to this portion of the subject property, and then it says it has to have a review. So
it would have been a historical holding that would have been put in place potentially on the basis of servicing, and it just meant that it had to go through a comprehensive review process, such as this application has gone through submission of the application. And so we're confident that we can remove that holding because it has gone through that comprehensive process.
okay, thank you. And then we have building height of 15 meters in order to permit a 4-story apartment building. Whereas bylaw permits a maximum building height of 11 meters, it is in the opinion of staff that the proposed amendment to the bylaw will not have a negative impact to the people who live to the north. This is also for the people living to the east. It wasn't taken into consideration, or it is, or just forgot to put that in.
That is correct. They were not expressly mentioned in the comments, but it would apply to them as well.
Okay, so, and then the other thing was a revised water main hydraulic analysis is to be done. Is this to be done now, or is it should be done before? And this is still on page 21 of 27. That's for water servicing.
Page 21?
Yeah, bottom of the page.
Okay. Right, so development engineering staff are comfortable to proceed at this time, and that will be part of a future site plan control application.
Okay, super. And let's see, who was it? Traffic and Transportation recognize that there needs to be potential upgrades to the road infrastructure that will be evaluated to inform a comprehensive review for traffic control. So has that been done now, or will that be done after the development is done?
That's going to be form a part of the review at site plan control stage.
Okay, so just for the public record, this is something that's part of the development charges. This is something that the applicant will pay towards.
It is anticipated that they may have to, there may be some costs associated for the applicant. That's correct.
And my former life, I was very involved with the turtle pond, so every time I see them. So one of the questions was that the impact that this will have, the runoff on the teal pond, because there is 2 of them, so the teal pond, which is to the north. So my question is, are we absolutely confident that there will be no negative impact on the teal pond?
It has been indicated that there will be a, make sure I have the wording correctly, but that there will be no net impact as they are proposing a, here we go. So they are proposing a new stormwater management system. So that consists of a new private storm sewer and municipal storm sewer that will be directing flows under Grays Road and into Confederation Park with a new outlet structure at the Stony Creek Pond. And so it is diverting to that new storm sewer system, and thus they have determined that there will be no net impact on the Teal Avenue Pond in that associated area. And so that is what the further review concluded.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you very much. I just wanted that for the public record because some of the questions that I had was more really centered on the ponds, to be honest with you. So thank you very much for that. May I have a motion, please? And no other, I'll take the chair back, sorry. No other questions for the staff? Thank you. So may I have a motion, please, to receive the presentation? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Skelly, all those in favor? Thank you. I'd like to call down now the applicant. John Arians from IBI Group.
Good morning, Madam Chairman, members of committee, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here on this application before you today. As staff indicated, there's, and Councillor Pearson and Councillor Collins are well aware, there's significant history with this application. Starting in 2012, there was 36 townhouses proposed. After a 2-year processing period that ended up at the Ontario Municipal Board, the appeal was subsequently withdrawn. The key issues facing that townhouse development were stormwater management and drainage, particularly the issue with respect to where is our drainage outlet for this particular site. And there was also official plan conformity issues dealing with townhouses. So those appeals were withdrawn. At the direction of Councillor Pearson and Collins, we went through a kind of an environmental assessment process to deal with the drainage issues, and as a result of that process we now have the current application which was submitted in December of last year. A couple open houses were held in February and March, and then here we are today in August with the final public meeting and a recommendation for approval. A significant amount of background work has been involved in this application. I won't go through all these studies and all the results of these studies. Suffice it to say that we've done our homework on this site, and we've looked under all the issues: soils, geotechnical, traffic impact, parking, you name it. These are all the analyses that were included. So this is the concept that is before us today. I'd like to point out that this is an ideal candidate site for a mild form of intensification such as what's before us. It's only a 4-story building in an area predominantly developed with 2.5-story dwellings, and as you can tell by the location of the building, it has generous setbacks from Francis Avenue to the north, and that's where the adjacent residential development is located. And I should point out that there's also a bit of a berm on the north side of Francis Avenue to further screen those homes. The site is ideally located in the north, I guess it's the northeast of Hamilton and the northwest of former Stony Creek. We're a block away from major amenity areas such as Confederation Park. We're close to employment. We're close to major transportation. We're virtually at an interchange of the Queen Elizabeth Highway system. There are 106 units, and there's a diverse range of units proposed, including 1-bedroom plus den, and 2-bedroom units. There are also 188 parking spaces provided. 133 are within an underground garage, and 56 are surface parking. Based on your zoning standards, we only require 171 spaces, so we are 18 above the minimum required by the zoning bylaw. The one very unique thing about this design is the units which flank the service road, and that of course is the noise source affecting this property. And you can see on the slide, and I'll try and point it out with, this is an interior hallway or an interior corridor. So there are no units directly facing the noise source. all those units are oriented towards the north, so we have more or less a blank wall with no windows. That wall will still be architecturally designed and will incorporate some staggering and some articulation, but for all intent and purposes, there are no units directly facing the noise source. So it's a very unique design dealing specifically with this particular site. In addition, you'll see the extensive amount of green space on this property. When we go through the site plan process, we look forward to working with staff and coming up with decorative walls and walkways and outdoor amenity areas and extensive planting and landscaping, because this is a gateway location going into the Lakeshore neighborhood in Stony Creek. So as we indicated, one of the main issues facing this property was stormwater management, and where do we get the drainage to go if we can't go within the teal ponds to the northeast? And as I indicated through the direction of Councillors Pearson and Collins, we went through our own environmental assessment process. We hosted 2 public meetings. We had all kinds of options on the table. We can go this way, we can go that way, we can go here. And it was finally decided that the best method was to proceed with a new storm sewer system, as staff have indicated, which will cross Grays Road, go into Confederation Park, and outlet to the lake in a brand new storm facility. As you're all aware, Confederation Park is undergoing design changes, and these improvements will be incorporated and paid for fully by this development application. So there is no drainage heading towards the turtle ponds. That issue has been addressed completely. Drainage has been resolved. With the extensive number of public meetings and having gone through that environmental assessment, we know that there are a number of concerns expressed both by the Lakewood Community Council and by neighboring residents. As staff mentioned, there is a request that we provide further noise attenuation, and I'll describe that in a moment. There is also a suggestion that we should have additional commercial uses on this property, and while my client was willing to accept zoning which would accommodate that, unfortunately, that would then require more detailed site plans and additional parking. So we decided we wouldn't pursue that at this time, and should the condominium board wish to pursue some type of mixed use or commercial uses, they would be free to do so. There was a suggestion that we need to reduce the speed limit on the North Service Road. My client certainly supports that. Ultimately, that's your decision to make. We've added bicycle parking, there are pedestrian paths, there's pedestrian walkways and bike paths as well. So we've provided an alternate form of transportation. There was a request to extend additional bus and transit facilities to this neighborhood. Again, we're supportive, but ultimately that's your decision. I do show on a site plan that I'll show you in a moment where we can add an additional bus shelter, which will really benefit this neighborhood and this particular property. You've heard the discussion about building the sun shelter, or what I call the gazebo, in the park. Again, my client's willing to do it if the city agrees to that. And of course that would be deducted from the park fees, which I understand is not based on your current protocol for doing that. With respect to the use of the amenity room, we are going to put that in the condominium declaration so that the Lakewood Community Council can use the party room up to 3 times a year. Now, we can set the ball rolling for that, but as I explained to them, ultimately, if the Condo Corp decides to amend their declaration and remove it, we have no control over that, but we are going to put it in from day one. So hopefully, this will become a meeting place for the neighboring residents. And then lastly, there was suggestions that we need signalization and perhaps a roundabout at Francis and Drake's. Well, unfortunately, the traffic studies just don't warrant it. However, as a result of the neighborhood interaction, what's shown on red are the additional features which we'll incorporate into the site plan. First and foremost is that noise attenuation wall extending westerly from the southwest corner of the property. We've added bike paths, we've added additional sidewalks, and up in that top corner, in this location, we've identified a good spot for a bus shelter, because the bus can come in, loop this way, go over to Confederation, turn around, and then come back through the neighborhood. So it's an ideal location for a bus shelter, and we would be pleased to address that as part of the site plan process. So members of committee, we've done what we can to accommodate the residents and the neighborhood concerns. We have an ideal intensification site. It's suited perfectly for this type of building. This is a mild form of intensification. There are no technical issues facing this application, and we respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? None? Oh, thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, John, for the overview, and I know a lot of work has been done on this as far as the original applications and coming back have happened. Can you just confirm again, the parking is going to be underground parking and surface parking, and the number of slots?
Certainly. So there is an underground garage, and I'll use the pointer. This is the entrance ramp to the underground garage. The underground garage will basically extend in this area, and there are 133 spaces underground. Keep in mind, we only have 106 units, so there's extra parking even for visitors underground. And then we have 56 surface parking spots for a grand total of 188. We require 171, so there's 18 more than what the bylaws stipulate.
And the community meetings and that were had, and you touched on the stormwater concerns that were raised and water going over to the Avenue, the Turtle Pond. So now, and I understand Conservation Authority is in agreement to water being diverted underneath the Grays Road overpass and over to Confederation Park into their storm management area.
Through you, Madam Chair, that's exactly correct. We went, as I said, we went through this environmental assessment. We looked at all the options. There was public consultation. There was consultation with the agencies like the Hamilton Conservation Authority. This was the preferred solution, and it was agreed to by all parties, including the conservation.
Correct. Thank
Yes.
you. And but all of the water is being diverted to Confederation Park. There is no issue with any water, any filtration of any other water going into the Turtle Pond?
John?
Thank you. My only consideration, and as a dumb planner, not an engineer, of course, is whatever minor drainage might be running in these ditches now that ends up in that pond may still go there, but for the most part, everything is being diverted.
Councillor?
And just one last, and I just to put it on the record, there is a sound barrier wall in this stretch of the North Service Road currently, just east of.
That's correct, yes.
Thank you. Councillor Farr?
John, one of the things, welcome back to committee. One of the things you noted, and it's quite evident in that pic, is the amount of green space. We don't often see this when it comes to a footprint of land and the developments that come before us. There's a great deal of it, and I'm impressed by that. Can you, A, describe, are we just talking grass and trees initially, and B, how it works, and in your expertise and your reflections on condos in the past that have been built, obviously that green space is going to be maintained by the corporation. It is a gateway. I'm sure they'll take a lot of pride in maintaining it. Is it generally in your history on these issues the kind of thing that we see enhanced over time or neglected over time?
Well, through the chair to the councillor, you're correct. There's an extensive amount of landscaping and open space. And ultimately, when we go through the site plan process, we'll provide the level of detail. I can see gardens, I can see walkways, I can see, fish ponds, whatever. I see a nice decorative wall along Francis Avenue and along Drake's, connecting to the sidewalks with pathways and walkways. So there's tremendous opportunity here to really create a nice focal point. And, my landscape architects are chomping at the bit to get at this site.
Just to be more clear, I started the day the same way yesterday. In your history,
yes,
is it generally the practice of condominium corporations early on to maintain properties like this and even enhance properties like this over time?
John?
Through the chair, it's certainly been my experience that all the maintenance is borne by the property association, by the condominium. And yeah, once once the developer hands over the keys and the condominium declarations and the condo board is established, they run this show. It's their property, and enhanced landscaping is of course, if they wanted to have garden plots, if they wanted to have a sitting area, if they wanted to have a quiet reading nook, you know, that's totally within, just like in your home, my home, whatever we want to do, we can add.
Councillor?
And I would expect, particularly early on, that would be enhanced over time. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Councillor Collins?
Thanks, Madam Chairman. Through you to John. John, very quickly, this is an entrance to the neighborhood.
Yes.
The location to the entire area.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question is around the materials that will be used for the development. And some of the medium and higher density developments we've seen lately in the downtown and elsewhere, even in further down in Councillor Pearson's ward along the QE, we've seen some greatest in terms of the aesthetics. And so I'm wondering what attention to detail will be given to the materials that are used. Question I had from someone is, you know, are there balconies here? What kind of balconies are they? You know, the newer plexiglass material, or are they the traditional structures that can fade? And so I have the only questions that I've received, say one, related to the quality of the development in terms of kind of materials the developer would use. And I'm hoping you can share with us today, understanding that's something that's usually done at the end of the development process, but what's the vision right now for this development?
Through the chair, I kicked myself this morning because when I went through my PowerPoint, we do have building elevations and colored elevations, and they're just not part of my presentation, and I apologize. But it is a brick and stucco facade for the building, and K&Y Architects are the architects. They are also the architects that, you know, most of the developers in the new Stony Creek Lakeshore area have been using, and they're quality designs, brick, stucco, all articulation, different colors and textures of material. As far as the balcony detail, sir, I just don't know at this point, but, you know, rest assured, they have to sell these units, so they want to make it a quality product as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. I just some, you know, I guess beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I've seen, you know, many gravitate to some of the cheaper materials, and the more new, modern look that it could be applied to it in terms of design and architecture. Especially, you know, it's on the lake shore.
Yes.
We've seen a lot of people, established neighborhood, a lot of people have renovated their own homes. There's some gentrification certainly in the neighborhood, and they're using different materials and higher grade materials. So for me, something that you know, didn't correspond to that, the investments that other single family homeowners are making themselves, I think would certainly wouldn't help the neighborhood in terms of.
Madam Chair, what I can commit to the committee is between now and your council meeting, I can circulate those elevation drawings if the committee would feel that it being useful. So I could do that through the clerk or directly by email. It's up to you.
If there are suggested changes to be made, is that something that can be discussed before the approval? Because once this is approved, we have no leverage in the future to minor or even, in my opinion, any changes.
So you do have the site plan process, which includes building elevations, and if you were to be involved in that process as well, there's further input, but I understand your point, sir.
Any other questions for John? Okay, thank you. May I have a motion to receive the agent's presentation, please? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Skelly, all those in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you. We'd now like to invite the members of the public down to the podium. Whoever would like to speak. I have a raise of hands of who would like to come down. Come down as well, and then while the first speaker is speaking, you can sign in. So when you come to the podium, please write your name and your address and your phone number. You, however, can wait until after you're finished speaking, and then when this lady comes up to speak, you can do it then.
Okay.
Thank you. And please introduce yourself for the members.
My name is Nancy West. I live right adjacent to this property.
And can
kitty
you-
corner.
You're able to move this microphone so we can
Okay.
hear everything you're saying.
Okay,
Bend it up as well.
because I'm tall. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, before I begin our presentation today, I want to apologize in advance if I sound a little angry, because quite frankly I am. I'm also more than a little nervous. I'm acting today as spokesperson for the 110 members of the Lakewood Beach Community Council, 75 of which live in the immediate vicinity of this proposed development. At every turn of events, we have been blocked by the city and our elected representative from actively participating and having meaningful discussions on developing this land over the course of the past 2 years. Our goal has always been to reach an amicable resolution with all the parties. We've been practically begging to have a voice in shaping this development, and yet not once have any of the discussion makers contacted us. Hamilton has done some excellent work in resident-led neighborhood action plans. We want you to know that we wholeheartedly agree that successful neighborhoods are ones in which we work together to shape our community to ensure it meets everyone's needs, one that is inclusive of all stakeholders. We feel like we've not gotten a voice on this issue. To that end, we met with John Arians as soon as we received notification of the new proposal before you today. We had a very fruitful discussion, which resulted in our submission back on February 15th, 2016, as shown in Appendix E, a submission that basically supported the development as long as we worked towards implementing some safety measures and worked toward providing alternative modes of transportation in our community, neither of which it appears that staff have agreed to. The fact that we don't even get the minor sun shelter in our park, even though Mr. Silvestri is willing to provide it, we're perplexed as to why we've been denied a benefit to our community that is not unreasonable in exchange for the increase in the height and the density. We're a little worried about the plan in that with the drainage towards the new park, we were of the view that some of this water was going to end up in the big pond. And a lot of these plans show sidewalks where the open ditches are, and the HCA has said that you have to leave the ditches open. So we're just concerned about the sidewalk implementation on the plan and whether the ditches will remain open for the drainage problem. We also have an issue with the traffic. Traffic in our area right now is just ridiculous, especially at certain times in the morning and at night. We're worried about the people's ability to get out of our neighborhood. The road from Drake's that goes out to this area does not meet properly, so we can't even do a four-way stop. We're worried about the fact that the planning committee has said that Francis Road will be increased from 13 meters to 26 meters, and that Drake's will also be widened. So we're concerned whether those measurements have been taken into effect with this plan. We're also a little bit concerned about the density. It's being proposed as medium density. However, our measurements that we've taken don't really jibe with the measurements here. When we measure it out, we find that this is 0.8 something hectares, not 1.07. In the original application for the 36 townhomes, it was stated that it was 1.02. Now they're stating that it's 1.07. With the widening of those two roads that border this property, we're worried that it's even going to be less than the 0.835 hectares that we've done. We're worried about the there's parts of this condo feature that show public space rooms, but we're worried whether they're going to actually be used for apartments and whether that will make the density high density, not medium density. With our calculations, we're getting 130 units per hectare, and the maximum is 99. So we're just concerned that we want assurance from the builder that these open spaces in the condo unit aren't going to actually be condo spaces. Mostly the people in our neighborhood have written in submissions before to the original application, and they didn't feel that they had to rewrite in for this application. Their voices are the same, their concerns are the same. They're worried about the traffic. This is a truck route. Grays Road, Drake's, Francis, all going out to the service road. We're the only neighborhood, along with Millen, that has a truck route in our residential roads. There are no industrial spaces there. They could use the north service road, or I mean the south service road, but the trucks are still coming down and around, and we're just concerned about trying to implement a traffic study where it's just not all about the flow of vehicles. We're worried about the pedestrians. This is part of the waterfront bike trail, so we're worried about the bikes. We're just concerned about the safety issue.
Thank you, Nancy. Are there any questions for... Oh, sorry, you did. Councillor Farr, and then I have Councillor Pearson. Oh, sure. Thank you. Councillor Pearson.
Madam Chairman, thank you, and thank you, Nancy, for coming today and certainly laying out your concerns. But I just have, only because you raised it at the beginning of the meeting, you commented that you've been blocked by the city and by the councillor of any involvement on this.
We've
confirmed. I just want to ask, did you not attend 3 of the 4 meetings that I had?
I did attend all of them.
Record?
Yes.
I had 4
No.
meetings on this, and I'll clarify after, but I know Nancy was at these. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there.
Thank you, Nancy. Hello?
I was perplexed in the same way, obviously, so that was exactly my question.
Okay.
It sounded like there was no opportunities to dialogue and
We have had opportunities with the traffic department and the transportation department. We met with them separately. They were very forthcoming with us and very inclusive. And we were a little concerned about that none of our issues that were raised with those departments have been met with this application, as far as the bus shelter. And I know they've done studies, and the trans-cab system's not being used enough to warrant having a bus. However, there's so many people in our neighborhood that have given up on the trans-cab system because they wait too long for the trans-cab to come. They're missing their appointments, so they've given up. So our community is a vehicle-based community because of necessity.
thank you for the clarification that you met with traffic, transportation.
Yes.
You attended 3 or 4 public meetings.
Yes, I did.
Engaging as we do in the city. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the presenter? Seeing none, thank you, Nancy. And
Thank
I
you.
believe we have one more person coming down. Sorry. If I don't know your name, I'll just smile. Nancy, did you sign in? Thank you.
Yes, I'm Beverly Corsini, and I live at 40 Oceanic Drive. I would like to emphasize that Teal Pond, Big Pond are one of the same, and it's privately owned. We own not the water, of course, but the basin. And when we purchased our property back in 1984, the Hamilton Region Conservation Authority sent this letter to our lawyer at the time. The rear yard of lots 36 includes part of an existing borough site excavated by WWWS Limited in accordance with the requirements of the Conservation Authority. The borough site is designed to provide compensating storage capacity under flood conditions for an equal volume of fill placed in the pond to the south. Please advise your client that the borough site may be periodically inundated when water levels in the pond rise. Furthermore, in accordance with the agreement, no fill is to be placed, grades altered, or structures erected in the borough site without the written consent of the Conservation Authority. I would like to mention today that indeed that borough has been reduced to a slope, and we are the lowest part around that pond. If there's any kind of extra water, it will be onto our property. And I'm most concerned because in a project this mammoth, who knows what's going to happen when earth is excavated underground. Having been raised on a farm, I know one thing to be sure: water always wins.
Thank you, Beverly. Just a minute. Is there anyone here with any questions for Beverly? Seeing none. Sorry, Beverly. I just wanted to make sure. May I please have a motion to receive Beverly's presentation? Councillor Pearson, Councillor Conley. All those in favor? Thank you. Is there anyone else from 560? I'm going to call it out 3 times. Is there anyone here to speak to 560 Grays Road? Going once. Is there anyone here to speak to 560 Grays Road? Going twice. 3rd time, final call. Anyone here for 560 Grays Road? Seeing no one, so can I please, no one left. May I please have a motion to close the public meeting? Thank you. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Conley, all those in favor? Thank you. So now I need a motion for the staff report on the floor. Councillor Pearson?
Madam Chairman, yes, I'll move the staff recommendation, and I'd like
Seconded by Councillor Partridge.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, Madam Chair, I just, for committee's information and certainly presentations today were made. Appreciate the residents that have come out. Just so my files on this, I don't know if staff have, but it's been a long. Started out with 36 townhouses back in 2012. There have been 4 meetings, neighborhood meetings. There has been good dialogue and good involvement. They had meetings dealing with the initial development, which was 36 townhouses as far as stormwater. We had a core group of people that came out to that. The developer then came back after we were pretty well set with the 36 townhouses, came back with this rendition, which I think is excellent for what's been going on. I want to add as well is that this particular development, as far as the intensification of this, also blends well with the new GO station. Walking distance. So have that. I understand the residents' concerns with that with regards to traffic, and that's also been the issue with the traffic issues are being addressed as development moves along. Not sure if this is going to be signalized because we're not sure where everything's going to land once all the development occurs. So that's being worked on. And transit, for the record, I have been trying since 2003. Every year I meet with the transit director, every single year. How can I get and how fast can we get buses down here? The alignment of the entranceway to Confederation Park and a bus lay-by, I understand, is going to be. I think it will get us that much closer to having service extend, and you as well have it further east of, not just the residents, but the industry as well. Have Transcab currently. With regards to the bike lanes, all of that's going to be put in place. Cycling route that runs Francis and goes in and out and goes right through to Confederation Park. So with that, Madam Chair, I certainly am pleased to address the concerns, and I think an excellent job. And I just also want to mention, I think this is my application now that's come forward in Ward 10 where parking, more and more developers are putting parking underground. I'm pleased that they're doing that because less ground cover of concrete. So thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I'm very pleased to second this. But I want to just make a couple of comments. First of all, I really commend Councillor Pearson and Councillor Collins This, as was said previous, this has been one of those applications that has been a long time being worked on. It's gone through different iterations, and I'm very, very pleased to see the noise attenuation fencing, because that, that in itself is a big deal. I know certainly with all the growth in Waterdown, my residents would die for that. It's just so very important. And also the amount of green space, as was previously mentioned, it's really quite something to see an application with so much green space. Again, most of us, tend to fight for that, and yet here it is in front of us. I also want to make mention of the public meetings that were held. Residents' concerns are so very important, and we as councillors, we recognize that, and we do pay attention and try and mitigate as much as we can. And again, Councillor Pearson, I think you've done an excellent job of that. But I also want to assure the residents that there's still a site plan stage to this. So once this gets approved today, the councillors will be involved with the site plan, and they will be able to carry some of those concerns forward and further continue to work on it. So today is not the end of the work that's going to be done. It is really just a continuation to the final project. And, transit is a big issue in this area. The more residents you have, and I can attest to this with Waterdown, the more residents you have, the more transit you will get. And that just makes it better for everyone, for all the residents that live there. So those are my comments, Madam Chair, and I'm very pleased to second this.
Thank you. And Councillor Skelly, can you take the chair? I just have one quick question, and this is just about the drainage, just to get some reassurance from staff for the public record. So through you, Councillor Skelly, to Mr. Sergi. Sergi, I heard drainage come up as a number of times, how it affects the Teal Pond to the north. We heard the last speaker say that they're worried about the overflow coming in. So is there any comments that you can make to reassure the public that the drainage should not or will not be an issue?
Through the chair to the councillor, we've worked hand in hand with the Conservation Authority. We have a very good strategy with the developer's engineer. We're satisfied that we can meet all the requirements to ensure that we're not impacting anybody adjacent to the property.
Thank you, because my understanding is the last OMB hearing on this site was about drainage as well, so we just want to put that on the record. Thank you. I'll take the chair back. So I have a motion on the floor. All those in favor? Thank you. Sorry, yes, I'm doing it again. So, example of explanations is the submissions made regarding this matter affected the decision by supporting the granting of the application. Right? Are we all voting on that? All those in favor? Thank you. I want to thank the residents for coming out today, and the more that are sitting here, I know it's just the big thrill of your life to sit here and listen to all this too. So 6.3, we have applications to amend the Urban Hamilton official plan in the Township of Glanbrook zoning bylaw number 464 for lands located at 2064, 2066, 2068, and 2070 Rymal Road East in Glanbrook. This is mine. It's Ward 11. I'd like to turn the chair over to Councillor Pearson. With the motion to waive the staff report, I just have a couple of questions. Okay. I believe it's Valeria. Valeria, do you mind just putting up the site plan up there? I just have a couple of quick questions for the public record, please. There we go. Because we have to do the routine.
Good morning, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we'll start the process. 6.3, application to amend Urban Hamilton Official Plan, Township of Glenbrook zoning bylaw number 464 for lands located at 2064, 2066, 2068, and 2070 Rymal Road East. I'm going to start. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the Urban Hamilton Official Plan and zoning bylaw amendments, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I'm going to go out to the public. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this item this morning? We have the applicant's agent here, correct? That's another part of it. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to this? I have to say this 3 times. Again, seeing no one, I'll close off to the floor. And now, may I have a motion, Councillor, to waive the staff presentation? Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Councillor Pizzuta. All in favor? Carried. And I'm going to ask, now, Councillor Johnson, you had a question. Go ahead.
A couple of questions about the staff report, to be honest with you. Valeria, can you please, am I saying your name right?
Valeria is also fine.
Sorry. Can you please just point out just describe the site plan very quickly?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I'll just briefly go over the site plan. Oops. Here we go. This is Rymal. Oh, I'm doing it. The top one, right? Okay.
There you go.
So here is Rymal Road East. Second Road West and Kingsborough Drive is just about here-ish. The proposed oil and lube service station is here with the bays entering here. The manual 6-bay car wash is here. And here are the drive-through lanes for the car wash, the automatic car wash and car detailing. This portion of the building is the existing Farmer Al's, which will remain. And here is the proposed new commercial building. It'll be a multi-tenanted 1,500 square meter building.
Thank you. So now just a couple of quick questions, please. On page 6 of 34, there is a menu of things that are allowed to be on this property. And I go to page 25 of 34. Let me get there. Sorry, I got them tabbed. It says permitted uses to be deleted. So on one page, on 6 of 34, it says here's what they're applying for. And then on 25 of 34, the official plan amendment would delete garden centers, antique, and gift shops, a restaurant to a maximum seating capacity of 30 persons. And yet that's one of the lists that are here, that the 30 persons. And pet store, pet food store, veterinarian establishment, and yet that's on the permitted list. So there's a conflict here. Can you explain to me which one applies?
Yes, through Madam Chair to you. The list on page 25 is from the official plan amendment.
Okay.
And those uses start the list on page 5 of 34. Retail stores are proposed to be permitted, and so something as specific as a pet store I would expect to be permitted as a retail store. And a restaurant will still be permitted in the OPA, but we've removed the maximum seating capacity from the OP. It will still be in the zoning bylaw.
Okay, so we've got an OPA, or we've got an official plan that says one thing, and then you're going to change the zoning to say something different? Should they not be in
Well, I tried to make the zoning more specific and using the OPA to be a bit more broader, just in keeping with the language of the OP.
Okay, but you've asked it to be deleted. My understanding is veterinarian services is actually a very specific use, and it's something that from my understanding is that's why they include it in the zoning bylaw, because there are certain areas it's just not compatible. So it's very confusing. Should we not just be lining them all up to permit them all straight down the road?
Yes, in fact, that is an error on page 25 of the report. If you go to Appendix B, veterinary service is proposed to be permitted in the OP as well.
I'm going to make that amendment that we actually delete that paragraph because it's not lining up with everything. That's my concern. Permitted uses are billiard parlor and private or commercial club are not permitted uses within the local commercial designation, and yet that's still on the list. So that's another concern. It doesn't line up again.
Well, we're proposing to include it in the OP. So the OP would add it.
Okay, thank you. Oops, I'm almost there. Okay, there was some question about the wall. The developer is concerned because I believe the property to the south at the bottom of the page has an existing wall for the condominium property behind it. It's a very extensive wall. It's very high. And I believe there is no wall to the west of this property abutting on. So you please help me understand, are we asking for a second wall to the south as well as one to the west?
Yes. We don't have the opportunity to project a separate photo, do we? I can pass this up to you. The development to the south did provide a ranging from 2.5 meter to 4 meter high noise wall sort of here. It doesn't extend the full width of the property, and it is about this grading is higher, so it's also about 1 meter higher than these lands. The applicant's noise assessment did provide an addendum at the request of staff to take into account that noise mitigation feature and then run the test again to see if additional noise mitigation is required. The applicant's assessment, including this, also recommended a wall along this part of the property extending for 64 meters in length here. Another sound barrier, 3.9 meters in height, extending 74 meters along the west wall, in addition to wing walls, they call them, at the exit of the car wash.
Okay, thank you for that. So the 64 meters to the south of that is not going to extend the entire property because of the condominium fence. It will overlap.
I believe it will overlap, yes.
Okay, thank you. And got that one. And we also now in the staff report have included the hydro box. That was a concern. It's not permitted. Now we're including it in here. So I believe that was another concern.
Yes, the applicant was concerned, as you know, the definition of landscape strip in the Glanbrook zoning bylaw would not permit utilities or any signage. However, there is the existing pylon sign for the store in that area, and given that the electrical design for the site hasn't been finalized and hasn't been approved yet, some flexibility was permitted in case the hydro or electrical equipment would be needed along the front.
Okay, thank you for that. Now in the multi-use building, you have got down the reduction in the number of on-site parking spaces for 100 spaces, whereas 152 are required. My colleagues should understand that Rymal Road permits no parking. You're having Kingston and you have Second Road here. It's not going to have any parking because of it's a thoroughfare. You put a fitness club in there, and I'm going to tell you that the neighbors behind are going to be screaming at me. So I just want to understand why the reduction in parking, considering all the uses that we're now going to allow.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair, to the committee. The 152 parking spaces that was determined through zoning would also include the parking required for the automotive uses, for the car wash, and for the zoning for the oil and lube station as well. If you look at just the commercial uses, including the existing store and this proposed plaza, a shopping center would only require 131 spaces. Retail would only require 120 if it were all, or 119 if it were all retail uses. The parking study was provided by the applicant to demonstrate that providing 100 spaces is in line with the 85th percentile of shopping centers of this size, as well as they had projected the maximum demand for such a size to be 75 spaces. And so in their opinion and with staff concurred that 100 parking spaces should be sufficient. In order to ensure that no higher traffic generating uses were going to be permitted, the applicant did originally request a medical clinic use, and staff did not recommend that that be included in the instruments. As well, that is one of the reasons for the limitation of 30 persons for the restaurant uses.
Okay, so I have the only thing that I had, and I've spoken to the applicant about this, the only two uses that I really had an issue with actually was billiard hall and commercial or private clubs, which is fitness club, because if we're going to reduce this parking, in one scenario 132 is okay, 120 in another scenario, but we're only allowing 100. Anybody who belongs to a fitness club will tell you that that's what takes over a parking lot, as you will see at the corner of Highland and Upper Centennial. It's just absolutely ludicrous trying to find a parking spot in that shopping plaza. So is it of the staff's opinion that when you went down this list, private or commercial clubs, that included fitness club, that included...
I don't have the zoning bylaw with me to understand what it was, but I was not anticipating a fitness club. I was anticipating more something like a social club, something for the community actually to be used.
Okay. All right, so I'll have my questions for the agent, please. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions from committee? Thank you very much. I'm going to turn now to Mr. Arians, IBI, and heard that there's some questions, so I'm going to ask you to come down, John. Thank you.
Hello again.
John, Councillor Johnson's just going to ask some questions. I don't know, you don't want him to go through. Yeah, just the layout, and she's got some questions to that.
I have a colored site plan, which might be easier to...
Okay, excellent.
So through you, Chair, to John, you heard my questions about the uses. We've
Yes.
got that straightened out as far as the mix-up in the wording. Commercial or private club on the list?
It's on the list for a number of reasons. This is meant to be a neighborhood type of facility.
Right.
So a large residential population. There's all kinds of club use out there, like the social clubs, the Sons of Italy, organizations like that. Fitness clubs, there is a potential there, but the footprint of the commercial building, it's only, it's quite limited. You're not going to get, a Good Life Fitness. They require much bigger space. So it's...
My concern is...
this isn't the type of plaza that's going to lend itself, but still allowing those types of uses, maybe something like curves, maybe something like it's a fitness club, but it's more limited. CrossFit is a prime example of a very small unit where you go in, you have your high intensity workouts. You don't get the crowds of people, you don't have 25 stationary bikes. You have only 2 and a rowing machine and a set of free weights. So it's that type of fitness club that has the potential here.
Okay,
we're not worried about the large clubs going here. It won't happen.
Okay, thank you. And is your client married to the fact that we put a billiard hall in here?
In fact, through you, Madam Chair, we have a tenant committed for a billiard club. Again, it's that neighborhood type of use. When you consider we can have a restaurant, a licensed facility like a pub or a bar with pool tables, the reverse is a pool hall with a licensed facility. I mean, they're almost identical situations, and we do have a tenant. It's not a large use, 12 to 16 tables, Again, it's primarily busy in the evening when the other retail components are less active. We think it's an appropriate use for this location. Just to talk about the parking, if I may. Our ratio is 1 space per 24 square meters, and that's the 100 spaces. The bylaw says 131 are required. Parking for all of the quick lube and the car detailing, that's all in the stacking lanes. So for, they don't really count. When I look at what you recently approved just down the street at Trinity, that's at 25.5 square meters for each parking spot. We're very close to what council has approved for that particular property. And they're identical C3 type zoning category. So we're being consistent. I would suggest to you that the old Glanbrook bylaw is super conservative and out of date when it comes to modern parking standards. And, the area is becoming modernized and transit is being introduced. There's going to be ample parking here for this range of uses and this size of plaza.
I think we're going to have to agree to disagree. Okay. Thanks, John. Those are all my questions.
Okay.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Jackson. Okay, that's fine.
I just want to go on the record as a declaration of interest. I didn't realize we're going to veer into fitness clubs. I own one, so I'm out.
I don't go, just.
I think I've never been here before or something, don't you? Well, not that often. I'm just, there's no driveway on the west side to go in and out. Is that right? That's what it looks like, but I just want to assure. So on to Kingsborough Road Drive, there's no, I don't want one, but I'm just asking if there is one. Doesn't appear.
This is a dead-end stub. There's no driveway connection proposed. Mr. DeSantis has a commercial property and a commercial development, but there's no connections proposed between the two. Anthony DeSantis.
Yeah, I know who he is. That's right beside this property? Is that what you're saying?
That's immediately to the east.
There's houses there. Okay, so the in and out will be from Rymal Road.
That's correct, sir.
One in and one out? Is that the way it's going to work?
You'll see in the staff report there's a suggestion that we only have 2 entrances. This plan shows 3, and in all likelihood, this one at the far west end, it's only right in and right out will be eliminated.
I have the traffic flow going down Second Road, which, as everybody knows, I get a lot of complaints and concerns about, and I'm just trying to see how that would affect Second Road in the long run. Won't know until we, I guess, John.
Well, I mean, Second Road,
Study done?
there was through the chair, there was a traffic study done, and, most of the traffic, of course, will be accommodated on Rymal. Second Road is now signalized, so, I mean, there will be some turning movements that way, but, it depends where the people are coming from. Yeah,
I know, it was just a concern. I know you can't tell me that. It's going to be what it's going to be, but it is a concern of mine that Second Road is used as an arterial road, and it really is not. So I'm just trying to see how I can predict in my head the traffic flow, but thanks very much for your...
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Is it the appropriate time? I'm sorry I missed Valeria Maurizio's presentation, and I've read through the report. So is this appropriate time I can ask her a question for clarification,
Councillor.
please?
Yes, sir.
Through you to Valeria, I believe Councillor Brenda Johnson may have touched on the hydro box issue, but I need clarification on that so that if this gets approved today, the family and long-standing family in our community, the Longo family that's there, Father Angelo and son Anthony, a generational family with Farmer Al's, I just, if this gets approved hopefully today, that they don't have to come back on a, if you will, on a technicality of the hydro box issue. So through you, Madam Chair, to Valeria or Anita, please, just to clarify that, if something needs to be done today, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee. Actually, the way that the zoning bylaw is drafted now to permit the hydro transformer in the landscaping strip, it only permits one new hydro transformer. The applicant was concerned that they don't know if they will need more than one or how this would be interpreted to permit something if, you know, a hydro transformer is on one side and a splitter or some other equipment was somewhere else. So this will have to be amended to permit more than one hydro transformer or electrical equipment.
So thanks, Valeria. So I'll leave that in the committee's hands, Madam Chair, because that amendment may be timely for today if committee is comfortable moving forward on the staff recommendation to get ahead of that technicality, if you will, if Horizons down the road says to the applicant, oh, we want 2 hydro boxes, and then they got to go to committee of adjustment or possibly come back here. On the fence issue, I know that's a concern for Councillor Brenda Johnson in terms of all that residential growth and a lot of the impact between Councillor Conley, Brenda Johnson, myself. We have a lot of synergies in terms of all the development going on in our 3 wards that border each other. So is the fence issue going to be hopefully dealt with if necessary at site plan, Madam Chair? Is that the understanding? Through you to either John or Anita. John?
Go ahead, John.
If I may, Madam Chair, the issue with the noise fence is a concern, and I can put it in this way. When multi-area developments did the project to the south of us, they had to mitigate noise based on existing conditions, and existing conditions was purely Farmer Al's and their loading zone. So that's why their noise fence is based like this, and it goes up and down accordingly. So now when we're coming with a new development, we now have to put a noise wall up to attenuate the new noise factors, the car wash, the plaza, the loading areas. So that's why there are 2 noise walls proposed in this instance. The zoning bylaw before you has very specific height and length requirements for that noise wall. We've asked that that be removed from the bylaw, because once you're locked into a height and a length, you can't vary it for 2 years, or we have to go through a process. So we'll deal with the noise issue as a site plan matter rather than putting it into the actual specifics measurements into the bylaw. We would prefer to maintain a little bit of flexibility for that very purpose.
Okay, so John, in other words, your request is that remove it from here, but you definitely are committed to helping Councillor Johnson down the road if approved in terms of the attenuation of noise, whatever, but you want the flexibility, Tom. It might be 10 feet tall, it might only need to be 4 feet tall, it might need to be this ladder type, it might only need to be frost fence. You want the flexibility at site plan through you, Madam Chair?
That's correct. It will be a noise attenuation fence. It'll meet the MOE guidelines and regulations. Just don't prescribe it in the bylaw, because then we're locked into something and we may need to change it. Just like the hydro vaults, we may need 2 in that front yard. Don't put it in the bylaw. Don't put us in handcuffs now. We'll deal with it at site plan stage.
So, Madam Chair, I'll reserve my comments when your committee has comments on report 6.3. But I would encourage committee on both the fence, if that's possible, to remove the stipulation now and allow it to be unfolding at site plan, but to put back in an amendment that would prevent the applicant from having to come back to committee or committee of adjustment on the hydro box issue in case 2 need to be installed. And I reserve the right to make some comments on report 6.3 later on, please. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Councillor Brenda Johnson, you had another question?
Sorry, just to clarify, my understanding is when staff was up here, they explained that another noise study was brought in by you, your applicant, and that a 64-meter long fence was required to the south of this property, correct?
Yes.
And are you committed to that 64-meter fence?
we're committed to providing the appropriate noise control, whether it's 64 meters or 74 meters, whatever the final noise study based on the grading plans dictates, that's what will be built as part of the site plan. We don't need to put in the bylaw 64 meters and X amount of height, because it might be more, it might be less.
But with all due respect, your own study showed that it had to be 64 meters long, and you're saying don't limit us to 64 feet, we might want to make it 164 feet? Or you're saying that we may just eliminate it depending on what a new noise study says?
So when we come forward with the zoning application, we do a preliminary acoustical analysis, a preliminary noise study. It looks at the concept plan, it looks at the sensitive uses, and it says we feel the noise wall this long, this high is needed. Okay, then we go into the site plan stage, and now we know the actual grading of the property, how the topography is going to be adjusted, is there going to be cut, is there going to be fill. That grading plan will impact that noise requirement.
Okay.
The wall may need to be longer, it may need to be higher, it may need to be shorter, it may need to be... So I'm saying let's just don't put it in the bylaw, those specifications. Leave that to the site plan stage, because it may be bigger, it may be shorter, it may be higher, it may be, you know.
Okay, so help me right now, John, because my concern is to protect the neighborhood.
Of course.
So you have submitted a noise study, the
Yes.
staff have recognized it and,
Yes.
and have acknowledged that this is what your noise study says, and now you're saying, don't hold us to that. So this is where my dilemma is. If we
Okay.
eliminate it completely, it may never happen, because you can always go back to the bylaw and say, see, it's not required.
No.
So
no.
help me with the wording then.
So let's go back to my previous application, a 4-story apartment building. Let's say we've got air conditioning on the rooftop, and we have to enclose that air conditioning to mitigate noise for the people next door, okay? So our noise study at the preliminary design stage says that has to be a 5-foot tall wall,
Right.
okay? Now we're into the detailed site plan stage, and we've got a different air conditioning manufacturer who has mufflers or baffles or whatever, and now I only need a 3-foot high noise wall. If your bylaw said 5, I don't need it anymore. All I'm saying is the requirement for a noise study will be implemented through the site plan process, not through zoning regulations.
Okay, so how's this one then? Noise mitigation will be implemented to the satisfaction of the GM of planning.
Absolutely.
That's better?
That's the way it normally works, yes.
Okay, so I have a question for staff, if I may, please, just to see if this is something that staff are comfortable as well. So through you to Anita or Valerie. That wording that I just proposed, noise mitigation will be implemented to the satisfaction of the GM of planning. Would that help with a menu of different ways to look at noise mitigation? It doesn't limit you to a noise wall. It may say noise wall and something else, but it also opens it all up, in my opinion. But you guys are the ones that write up these bylaws. Tell me whether or not that this is am I on the right track?
Through the chair to the councillor, yeah, there's certainly some different wording that we could put in there. I think the acknowledgement of having the requirement for an acoustical barrier in the zoning bylaw is important. Perhaps rather than having the specific dimensions, it could just be that an acoustical barrier shall be provided or is required. We can work on some wording, and then alternatively, I'd like to have a bit of a discussion, but perhaps it's something along the lines of to be further. The details of that acoustical barrier shall be determined at the site plan stage, or some wording along that line. I think it would be staff's preference that there be an acknowledgement in the zoning bylaw of the requirement for the acoustical barrier, but there's certainly some flexibility in how specific we are.
Okay, thanks for that, Anita. So a visual and acoustical barrier is required. That's one. And maybe the added part could be that noise mitigation will be to the satisfaction of the GM. So that gives us a variety of things. It helps concern. Yep. Okay, so we're all on one board, on one page, and my residents. That's great. That's what I was worried about.
Yep.
Thanks so much for your answers, John. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure. Is that all the questions for me then?
Ask any further questions of the presenter? Seeing none, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, come back into committee now. Motion, Councillor Brenda Johnson.
Yeah, I'm willing to move this with the following amendments, if I may, please. Number 1 amendment to allow the hydro boxes on the landscape strip. So it may take 1, it may take 7, but we're going to allow that on the landscape strip. And number 2, that visual and acoustical barrier is required with noise mitigation to be implemented to the satisfaction of the general manager of planning. So I think that answers the 2 big questions that were on the board to begin with, and I'm glad we've got that all sorted out, and I appreciate my colleagues' patience through all of this. I'll have to put this out there right now. I was on vacation last week and I didn't open up a book. So this is why we're here and what we're doing right now. And I want to thank the applicant for coming forward. They really worked hard on this with the staff. As Councillor Conley will tell you, that Rymal Road has always been an issue as far as traffic is concerned and urbanization of the road. So this will help catapult Rymal Road to become even more urbanized. We've done a portion of it. We need to do the second portion. This is part of that second portion. So I'm really excited actually about this being put in there. Farmer Al's is a wonderful establishment, but I think this will really complement everything going forward. So I just want to thank you, and those are my amendments. Seconded by
Councillor Johnson's moving the recommendation with amendments, seconded by Councillor Connolly. And Councillor Jackson, you wish to make comments?
Madam Chair, I'm fully supportive of what Councillor Johnson and Connolly have put forward with the amendments. And again, for me, my family's enjoyed shopping at Farmer Al's for many, many years. And I'm saying this sincerely, from a family-run traditional operation, with all the Walmarts that now can sell almost every bit of grocery you want, and the large supermarket chains, it's almost like a squeezing of a traditional family. So this allows the Farmer Al's in a new location to hopefully flourish with ancillary businesses as well that will help the family operation. And in light of what we did about a month ago, Madam Chair, with the Trinity Road and Rymal Road development, very similar type of components here. And I was very supportive in getting Rymal Road recently expanded to 5 lanes, basically from Nebo all the way past the new Bishop Ryan High School around Fletcher Road. And like Councillor Brenda Johnson says, and her and Councillor Connolly know, I'm very supportive of the next phase of expanding and extending Rymal Road to 5 lanes from that point past the new Bishop Ryan High School right to Upper Centennial Parkway, which hopefully should occur over the next 12 to 24 months. And the exciting part is as well, Upper Red Hill Valley Parkway, Madam Chair, should be open this fall sometime, 4-lane road, an extension of Red Hill, opening up all the developable lands while maintaining some recreational, environmental, karst caves, etc. This is an exciting area of our city that is growing, and I think that's one of the reasons why many people are discovering Hamilton, and hopefully Farmer Al's will be a part of that future. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. So we have the motion on the floor as amended, and I just want to add a note, if it has to go in IDA, that there were no submissions received. Okay, so all in favor? Carried. Opposed? Seeing none? Thank you. Oh, okay. So next one. Okay, we're going on to 6.4 is the proposed Urban Hamilton Official Plan Amendment Application Number, or UHOPA 16-08. The zoning bylaw amendment application ZAR 16021 for lands located at 54 Hatt Street, Dundas. Members of the public, in accordance with the provisions of the Planning Act, please be advised that if a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Council of the City of Hamilton before Council makes a decision regarding the Urban Hamilton Official Plan and zoning bylaw amendments, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the Council of the City of Hamilton to the Ontario Municipal Board, and the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the Board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. So I'm going to go out to the public again now, and I have to ask this 3 times. Is there anyone here wishing to speak to this item? This is with regards to 54 Hatt Street, Dundas. It's an application by Amica Inc. Anyone here from the public wishing to speak to this item? Second, Third time, anyone here is wishing to speak to this item? Seeing none, can I have a motion to close off to the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Connolly, second by Councillor Pasuta. Thank you. And I have Ken Dakin and Richard Leaptag in attendance, correct? Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you. Is there a wish for the staff presentation to be made? If not, can I have a motion to waive the staff presentation? Moved by Councillor Skelly, second by Councillor Collins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And I'm going to ask then Mr. Dakin and Leaptag, do you have any comments or are you satisfied with staff's recommendation? Thank you very much. So we have that all in order. Can I have a motion then on the application? Moved by Councillor Collins, second by Councillor Farr. All in favor? That's the approval of 54 Hatt Street, Dundas. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're going to move on now. Sorry, let me keep going. Public meeting portion is now closed. Oh, I'm sorry, Ida. Do I have to go back and read off? Sorry. Were there any application? No. So can we add to that? And with indulgence, Councillor Collins, Councillor Farr are going to add there were no submissions received on that application, right? Okay. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, everyone. So we now have the public meeting portions closed, and we will now hear the added delegations. You're reminded that you have 5 minutes of speaking limit. So we have Susan Mammal, Hamilton Halton Home Builders Association, respecting the province's growth plan and Greenbelt legislation. Morning, Susan.
It works. We had some technical difficulties earlier. So for the record, I guess I'm Suzanne Mammal. I'm from the Hamilton Halton Home Builders Association. I appreciate you approving my delegation request, sort of what is typically in advance of what we would typically do. But this is a really important topic, and one of the reasons we asked to come in advance of a staff presentation is that we think it's important for both the committee and staff to hear our position on an issue that's as big as this. It's not something that we're typically working through DILG, and so this is really an opportunity for everybody to understand our take on what's happening at the province so that you can consider it when you're both making your staff presentation and you're considering it yourselves. I guess the thing that I want to emphasize here, and I can't emphasize it enough, is that the provincial growth plan is a very significant thing to our city. I'm not going to be talking about the Greenbelt today, and the reason I'm not talking about the Greenbelt portion of it is that it is specific to landowners, and I represent the Hamilton Halton Home Builders Association, not necessarily individual interests. So that's the reason for coming earlier. So a little bit of background for you. The Greenbelt and Growth Plan were put forth in 2005 and 2006, and it really changed how we do things. They set minimum targets for densities that we were to achieve in terms of greenfield lands, not greenbelt lands, but greenfield lands. It also set a greenbelt boundary, which we all know, which cities like Hamilton could not develop beyond. It also set out through the growth plan various intensification targets, both within the built boundary and for those greenfield lands. So I just want to go over three terms that I'm going to be using through my presentation here because they're important. One is the built boundary, and that's literally the boundary that was built in 2006, the limit of approved subdivisions and what was built then. The white belt is the lands between that built boundary and the green belt line, and obviously I think we all know what the green belt is. So in 2006, when the growth plan was put into effect, it required that we build or we intensify by 40% within that built boundary. So that could be downtown, that could be on the mountain, it could be redevelopment of school sites, it could be through severances, it could be through reconstruction, towers like we've seen downtown. But it also set density targets for new development in greenfield areas in that white belt of a minimum of 50 persons or jobs per hectare. That is residential or employment related, so it's a combination of those two to achieve a density of 50 jobs per persons per hectare, and that's really to ensure efficient land use. So there have been some proposed changes that are under the current proposal, which the province is looking for comments from any party, including municipalities, in September. And on the intensification side of things, so that's within our built boundary, it would increase intensification from the current 40% to a proposed 60% of all new residents. And there's the policy in the province's document there. And what that means is that further intensification from what we've had for the last 10 years by an additional 50%. So to put that into perspective for you, of the 275,000 people proposed to come to Hamilton between the 2006 census data and the 2041 growth projections, 165,000 of those people we have to accommodate within that built boundary. So it's a lot of people. So we understand what that means. That would be the equivalent of 285 Connolly apartment buildings and 285 Tivoli projects. That is that many people. That is how much it would take to build at that level of intensification. Would not have to be downtown. It could be throughout that built boundary, but that's the scope of what the province is proposing for our city and every other city. And then on top of that, we have the new densities that is proposed for the White Belt. The province is suggesting that those density targets increase from 50 persons or jobs per hectare to 80 person or jobs per hectare. And there's the policy in the provincial document there. Now on the surface, you probably are familiar with some projects that are close to that 80 persons or jobs per hectare, but the devil's actually in the details. And in fact, what the province is proposing doesn't really mean 80 jobs or persons per hectare. There's two issues, but there's actually four, but two of the issues are what you don't achieve in your employment lands, you have to make up for in either other employment lands or residential lands. And also these densities are backward reaching. So whatever we've approved since 2006 that doesn't hit those densities, we have to now make up for. So I'm using a couple of examples here, and they're examples of, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but what are reasonable development projects that we're all very familiar with and are current. The first is the Airport Employment Growth District. So as per city staff, those proposed densities are 37 jobs per hectare. Well, currently we're to build to 50 jobs per hectare, and under the new plan, 80 jobs per hectare. So as per 2006 data, at 555 hectares, which is what the AUGD is, that would result in 7,215 jobs to have to be compensated for elsewhere, or that number of residents to be compensated for elsewhere. But if you look at the new numbers, it jumps to 23,865 lost jobs or people that have to be accommodated elsewhere to hit these density numbers. So as a recommendation, I have one more minute. Wow. Okay, so the reality is that's 57 Connolly buildings. Now, in the rest of the presentation that I've put forward to you, if you're really going to hold me to these 5 minutes, is that we
ask the committee if we can extend the 5-minute rule. Thank you. Thank you. So moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Skelly. All those in favor? Carry on.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to go back then.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was like, okay, so really the reality is that in the Airport Employment Growth District alone, we would be short this many jobs based on the densities that are being proposed. I'm not suggesting here at all that I think the provincial densities are a good thing. I'm just saying what we would be stuck with if this thing passed. Now, the second proposal, or the second project I'm using, is a residential subdivision, which is typical of many that are built in our city. So recently approved was the Summit Park Swayze lands, and it's a mix of ground-related housing. It allows for zoning up to mid-rise and some local commercial uses. Now, because of the density ranges allowed, the densities for this subdivision would range from a low of 40 person or jobs per hectare, which does not meet the current requirements of 50, up to a maximum of 96.78 jobs per persons per hectare, which would, on the surface, meet the 80 jobs per persons per hectare. So you have to be at the high end to meet those new targets. So when we look at what it is that we would have to build in the new areas, we have to look at how much land is left, because since 2006, obviously we've been building, and from the province's documents, they estimated that we had used up only 4.8% of the white belt lands, and that density was at 36%. However, the Ontario Home Builders Association, through my counterpart Build, which is the Toronto Home Builders Association, hired a planning firm out of Toronto, and they were gracious enough to include Hamilton in the results. And they have calculated that Hamilton has in fact used over half of the white belt lands that were available to us since 2006. And you may recall earlier in my presentation, I said that those target numbers are backwards reaching. So we would now be forced with an 80% jobs or 80 jobs or persons per hectare, and we have to go back to 2006. And that results in us now having to build to a density of 164 jobs or persons per hectare. So to put that in perspective, Hamilton as an urban growth center is at 200 jobs or persons per hectare. We have neighborhoods up on the mountain that are 20, 30, some 50, some 70, but nothing of the magnitude of that. So if you can imagine, you've got a nice urban core, you've got this suburban land, and now you're going to have this very dense ring around the very outside, which seems counterintuitive to most of us. So I've brought 4 examples of projects that are recently in the works or approved to show you what those densities look like. Now, these are calculated based on the province's rules. In Hamilton, I know we use net, but what they do is they look at a subdivision that includes roads, parks, stormwater management ponds, and they impose that 80 persons or jobs per hectare. And so you can imagine then with the land that you're actually using, it's higher. So a few examples for you. So I've got 1 subdivision, 1 townhouse, 1 mid-rise, 1 high-rise. Brant Haven's Freedom in Stony Creek, 4.18 hectares of land, with a density of 113.7. So compared to that 164, if we're forced to do that, it's not dense enough. Yet this is, as you can see from the site plan, it's a fairly, it's a fairly efficient use of land. We would have to accommodate another 210 people elsewhere for this project to occur. My second project here is the Connolly. It, on first glance, is shockingly dense at 3,241 persons per hectare. It's only a 0.13 hectare site, so it makes up for 400 people that were elsewhere. So while that number of 3,241 is massive, it's a small project, so it's a very intense project. A lot of people in that one project. But projects like this don't make up for, unless there's an awful lot of them, they don't make up for some of the densities elsewhere. My third project is a New Horizon project in Stony Creek, and it is what I call a mid-rise apartment, and the density in that is 369. So it's a fairly high density, but it would only make up for 471 people displaced in a project approved at lower densities. My last project, I'm going to go back to the Swayze lands. And you'll recall I said that the densities could go between 40 jobs per persons per hectare to 96. So if you, at that size, we would have to compensate for a range of people between 2,990 and 5,500 people. So I put all these together. So if we had one of every one of these projects, we would be looking at densities between 69 person jobs per hectare and 118.45, none of which meets that 164 jobs persons per hectare. So if you can imagine, it's atypical of typical development right now to have one of every one of these projects every time. Projects like the Connolly are few and far between. We're starting to have more of the mid-rise apartments and the townhouses, but we don't typically have one of each of them. So what I did on the next was to show you how we'd get to 164 jobs or persons per hectare. So for every one Summit Park that you approved, you'd have to approve 5 Sapphires, 4 Connollys, and 2 Freedom projects to get to that density. You can see why I've come today a month in advance of a staff report. So what happens if we don't conform to these new rules? You would not get urban boundaries as expansions as you needed them. I don't know what the rules beyond that are, but I suspect you would have to intensify internally until such time as you hit the right numbers. So what can we do about this? The city has the opportunity to tell the province what it wants for its city, and that's really why I labeled this presentation, What Will Hamilton Look Like? I think it behooves us as a city, as taxpayers, as residents, as business people, to really tell the province what it is that will and won't work for Hamilton in terms of what they're proposing. So I have 4 points here. And one is to decouple the employment and the residential density targets. Right now they're tied together. You'll recall I said the Airport Employment Growth District, what you don't achieve there, you have to make up for in residential. And so that pushes densities higher than they would otherwise have been. The second would be to insist that we're not mandated to accommodate growth for the last 10 years, meaning that if what they really want is 80 jobs or persons per hectare, that's what they get. Those densities are far more easily achieved. Whether that's what you're looking for or not, it's up to you. I'm not here today to propose things to you. It's really to bring these things to your attention so you can decide what it is that you want and ask staff to make that decision on behalf of the city. The third would be that the province change how they calculate densities. You'll recall earlier I mentioned that they do theirs based on a gross basis, that they are assuming that 80 persons or jobs per hectare is on a park, and so you have to make up for that in the lands beside it, or the roads, or the stormwater management ponds, that those things be takeouts. And the last be, if this is something that you're looking for, is that you ask the province to consider more reasonable densities. If you look at something like Summit Park, in speaking to their planners, it averages about 70 jobs and persons per hectare. So you're obviously going to have some that are less and some that are more. So 80 isn't a horrible number, but 164, if that's what we had to do in some areas, is. So my last slide is really, these are some questions to ask yourself. Are we putting growth where it's best located? Because if the province goes forward with it how they want, we will be stuck with this, and we'll have to deal with these people. So, are the densities that we're proposing downtown along the transit corridors, are they high enough? Because otherwise you're going to have this massive ring. What types of housing is the city looking for its residents? Are we okay with a higher portion of the population being in these higher density projects? Is that what taxpayers want? I mean, we all know that we have a real estate market that's hot, and they're buying a variety of housing choices, but we want to be able to maintain that variety of housing choices. Not everyone wants to live in a high-rise apartment building. Are we fine with the fact that limiting the supply of ground-related housing, which this will happen, will further increase the price of houses, and we all know how fast they're going up right now? Does this fit with existing neighborhoods? And lastly, does our infrastructure stand up to what we would have to put here? So I guess my final comment would be that we can't hope that the province does the right thing. My ardent request would be that you really take the time to think about what you propose to the province in your submission. We will obviously be making a submission of ourselves. I'm sure you can figure out what it will be based on my presentation to you today. We will ultimately build what is mandated by the province, but I think it behooves us to tell them what it is that we want for our city. And that is the end of my fairly long presentation.
Any questions for the presenter? I have one, so if I can pass that over to you. Thanks, Suzanne, for coming in today. One of the things you kept referring to was Alfreda, and I've always argued that Rymal Road is very low in density. When it's an arterial road, it should be built up higher. But unfortunately, it did go to the OMB. It was during the Glanbrook Township days. And God love the developer that's in that area. He's building exactly what was permitted. So he's not doing anything that's not right, but having today's numbers, it would be nice to see more density in that area. So it was more of a comment than anything else. So one of the dilemmas, and I think that Councillor Partridge can attest to this, that when secondary plans are taken to the OMB, 9 times out of 10, it's to ask for more density from the developer, not less. So how do you reconcile that you're you're asking for less density here today, as usually the pattern has been established in the background?
I rationalize it this way. I'm not suggesting that a denser form of development isn't appropriate. I'm suggesting that that level and scope is beyond anything that any of us really are willing to wrap our heads around. When you think about the fact that you've approved the Airport Employment Growth District, and as a result you have to build 57 Connolly buildings up on the mountain, that's a big thing to wrap your head around. That's a lot denser than saying, can I have more stacked townhouses? Can I have a low-rise apartment building? Can I have smaller lots? That in and of itself, that type of density that you see developers coming and asking of you, does not make up for this scope of thing that the province would ask for. That does make up some intensification. And as I think we all know around the table, it comes with its own set of issues already. So to go from that, which that form of density in a subdivision is, and the projects I gave were a range, and they ranged from, say, at the middle for the multi-area one would have been 80 up to about 120 in the mid-rise apartment building. So those densities they're there, and they offset one another. But if you had to have everything be a minimum of 164, you would not approve any more subdivisions, period.
Okay.
It would all be at the high end.
Thank you for that. And just because you mentioned it through you, Chair, Suzanne, you mentioned the AGD lands, which are not permitted for residential. It's strictly employment lands.
It is. That's in the jobs. Yeah.
As residential, and that.
No,
really...
then if that's what you understood, I'll correct it.
Okay.
The densities are persons or jobs per hectare, and they apply to both employment lands and residential lands. And what you don't provide in density in employment lands has to be made up in residential.
Clarifying. I appreciate that. I'll take the chair back. Councillor Skelly.
Very interesting report. Just a quick question. I mean, you have skin in the game. What do people want? Where's the demand right now? What are they looking for?
So everybody's different. Lots of people move to Hamilton because it's still an affordable way to buy a single-family house. That's not just construction here. I'm talking about housing choices. People make a lot of choices when they choose a new home. New, existing, but predominantly what people do is they know what they want and they're willing to drive until they can afford it. Now, some people may want a condo building and they might like the lifestyle in Hamilton. It's kind of hip, it's a little grittier, it's urban, and they want that. So they'll come to Hamilton for that and the prices that are here. But if somebody's working in downtown Toronto and they want a condo, they have lots of opportunities there. So the people who are buying condos here want to move to our city. But the people who are moving here, and this is more anecdotal, are people who are coming from Brampton and Mississauga who can't afford a single-family house, who can just afford it here. And then there are people who are moving beyond Hamilton because now they can't afford Hamilton anymore. And so they're going to Caledonia and they're going to Brantford. So that is just the reality of the situation. But, I mean, people can't afford 50-foot lots anymore. It's just hands down. Even if they wanted it, my membership couldn't build it because people can't afford it. Because the frank reality is the cost of land in the house, it just puts it out of the typical person's pocket. I can't afford it. I'm a fairly well-off person. I can't afford a single-family house. In terms of the inclusionary zoning, I almost qualify for that. So, you know, when you look at it that way, I think that just the way the market is really has changed how people choose to live. If you have your own house and you're there, it's great. You're on the ladder somewhere. But otherwise, people get in where they can. And that's just what it is. So you will see people buying smaller and smaller because that's all they can afford.
Thank you. May I have a motion, please, to receive? Only all those in favor. Thanks, Suzanne. And we also now have John Corbett, Corbett Land Strategies, on behalf of the Book Road West Landowners Group, respecting the draft Greenbelt Plan and its potential impact on the Book Road West area. And I believe that 90% of the people up there are from that area. Hands up. There we go. Thank you. I think it's safe to say, John, that we will allow you a little bit more than 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it.
Consideration.
Six minutes? Okay. Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the Planning Committee, and thank you for welcoming us here today. As the Chairman said, we do have a fairly large contingent who are here because this item is of great interest to them. Similar to the last speaker, we are also speaking here in advance of an anticipated staff report on the growth plan review and specifically the Greenbelt review that will appear on your agenda hopefully in September of this year. The goal of our delegation today is to introduce the Brook Road West Landowners Group, and this is a group that's been in existence for approximately 10 years, and they have taken an active interest in land use planning and development issues affecting their lands and adjacent lands. And specifically what we're here today is to talk about what we have found out to be an exact error in the provinces of Ontario's draft Greenbelt plan. I say an error because you will see in subsequent slides that protocol was not followed, and that in fact our due diligence with the province, we found that at the bureaucratic level that they see that an error was made and there needs to be a correction made as soon as possible because there are profound and grave consequences for the land ownership you see here today and others that could probably double these numbers if everyone was in attendance. So briefly, everyone's probably aware of the Brook Road area and where it exists near to the old township of Ancaster. It is constituent of over 1,400 gross acres, and of course it is just on the south side of Brook Road and bounded by Garner Road and south of Brook Road and between Fiddler's Green and Shavers Road. Participating landowners in this community group represent 70% of this area, so it is a strong representation. They are also a very well-organized group, being at it for over 9 years, involved in community planning interests, and there is in fact over 120 landowners within that 1,400 acres. They've also formed an executive committee formed of the 6 individuals you see on this slide, and they have retained us, Corporate Land Strategies, to represent them on this matter. And we've also retained some sub-consultants so we can address the key issues around the Greenbelt designation or proposed designation. And we have retained Beacon Environmental to deal with environmental issues, Colville Consulting, which is a specialty firm dealing in agricultural impact, and HGC Engineering to look at engineering and noise-related issues surrounding the airport. Just by way of introduction, because this is the first time I've appeared in front of you, we're a firm out of Oakville, Ontario. Previously I was Commissioner of Planning in Brampton for over 15 years, and also their Chief Administrative Officer, and now I'm in private practice. I have with me today Matt Palladina in the office, in the gallery as well, and we're here to answer questions after the presentation is complete. Again, this is characterized as a mistake that has been made. The Brook Road West lands were not identified as Greenbelt and should not be in the Greenbelt as originally constituted. This is a very rare situation because in public practice we hope that mistakes do not happen, but of course we're human and things do happen. As we've stated before, they were not in the original Greenbelt plan, and they were not recommended to be in the new Greenbelt plan specifically by City of Hamilton staff or council after your very rigorous review process and open houses that you convened last summer moving into the fall. In addition, there has been no technical basis or process announced by the province to provide an appropriate reason for these lands to be included in the Greenbelt. These lands were penciled in, of course, as part of the latest Greenbelt plan issued in May 2016 by the province, and I can say on behalf of our land ownership and client group and Hamilton staff and my professional group that it was a real shock and surprise to see it there for the following reasons. Council did embark in a very, very rigorous review of the proposed provincial planning policy review documents. Held several open studies. You hired Dillon Consulting to do a very detailed technical analysis of all options, what should be in the Greenbelt, what should be out of the Greenbelt. And you collected public comment on that. It all culminated in a presentation to Planning Committee on December 3rd of 2015 and then approved by Council on December 9th. Now, it's important to note that in most cases, the province will only act upon putting things in and out of the Greenbelt if it is sanctioned by the applicable City Council. And furthermore, in the documents that were released with the Greenbelt Plan, the province indicated in clear writing that these lands were included in the Greenbelt as well as some others in the Niagara region because they were identified by the City of Hamilton. We know that's not true. We know that, in fact, that on December 3rd and December 9th, you had all those options in front of you, and you did not specifically choose these lands. So that's where the error lies specifically. It also lies in the fact that because we've hired our technical experts, we know there's no technical justification for these lands to be included in Greenbelt. So a correction is needed, because if the correction is not made, there are very significant and major consequences for the land ownership group. 120 landowners will, without warning, have their land use virtually frozen. Property values will be severely impacted, obviously. Tax revenue to the city moving forward will be impacted, and normal land use activities enjoyed by this group will be taken away. For example, severances, building additions, etc. will be restricted, if not absolutely prohibited. So in summary, and hopefully keeping within my 5-minute timelines, Madam Chair, we want to confirm that a mistake was made. The Brook Road lands were not identified as Greenbelt and should categorically not be in the Greenbelt. A clear decision was made by City staff and Council after fulsome study, reports, and discussion throughout the summer of 2015. And just launching off the previous presenter, these lands in the future could well be something that's required to meet your growth targets as laid out by the province of Ontario. So there's a little bit of a conflict where the province is going on this. And again, if this area is not corrected, there are these profound circumstances and impacts that I've identified for the Brook Road residents. So moving forward, we are anticipating the arrival of the staff report, and again, we're here for information purposes so that we can make you aware of this very, very significant issue for residents in the City of Hamilton and specifically Brook Road. And we want to make that information known as early as possible, and we'll be awaiting with keen interest the results of your staff report. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, John. If you just want to stay there for a second, sure. Please. We have some questions. Councillor Partridge.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. John, thank you. And
thank you.
Kudos for staying within your 5 minutes. You may have been a little bit over, but I appreciate it. Did I hear you say at the very beginning that you had met with the province on this?
Yes, we have had consultations with them directly, and also we attended the open house here that was held at the convention center, and there's an awareness by staff that there's an issue that needs to be resolved.
Okay, thank you. And so does that mean you also met with our staff?
Yes, we have met with your staff previously. They're aware of our concerns, and they've advised us of the upcoming staff report. And so they did express as well that they were not certain where that came from, with the knowledge that the province does act on recommendations of council. Certainly wasn't staff recommendation, and certainly wasn't council's recommendation, as the public record shows. So therefore, everyone's still quite at a miss as to what happened.
Yeah, and I appreciate that through you, Madam Chair. The certainly the submissions that were made by this council and by staff into the draft review. It's my understanding not much of what we recommended actually was taken into account.
Yes.
So it just seems odd that this would have been included.
Agreed.
When it wasn't even in our recommendations.
Agreed.
Period, not to be or not to be. The Dillon report, referenced in here, if I understand it, that the Dillon amended the Brook Road properties as an option.
As an option.
But not that it be included.
And exactly. It
Okay,
listed
so
the
can you
options.
just explain that a little bit more
Sure.
for me?
The Dillon report was commissioned to look at all these options in or out for the Greenbelt, and they looked at growth forecast as a context for that.
Right.
And they also looked at disadvantages and advantages of areas coming in and out. And the end result, they did not land on a recommendation to put Book Road into the Greenbelt. And there was a subsequent, in fact, a key recommendation made by Dillon and also echoed by your staff was that none of these decisions should be made until you tackle your municipal comprehensive review, so you know how you're going to manage this tremendous growth that's coming your way in the next to the year 2041, which was a great recommendation. But you did, as a council, make some movements in and out for some other land holdings, but did not follow through on anything with Book Road.
I'll be interested to see how this pans out. Ultimately, what is it you're looking for from this council?
Well, obviously, just to stay the course with your previous recommendation, and hopefully that will be enunciated in this forthcoming staff report.
Okay, thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.
Thank
and
you.
thank you to the homeowners, property owners for coming in. Really appreciate to see you. It's nice to have this gallery filled for a change instead of empty. Thank you.
Everybody loves to be here. Thank you, because I was going to pass the chair over. Thank you. Councillor Castelli, next, please.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, in your experience, if we do stay the course and support your recommendation, what are the chances of the province accepting this?
Excellent.
Excellent?
I would say excellent at this point in time.
And if you can take the chair, Councillor Pearson. Can you go back to page 8 for me, please, John? Okay. So I'm a bit confused because right now this whole area that you highlighted is in the rural area, correct?
Right.
My understanding is that the Greenbelt policies and our rural policies have to mirror each other.
Right.
We can't be in conflict with them. We can be stricter, but we can't be in conflict. So when you're saying that severances will be restricted, are they not restricted already because they're still in the rural area?
They are restricted already, of course, as in accordance with your policies, but once you're in the green belt, they're almost outright prohibited, unless for a very, very few circumstances. So in the case, the green belt plan would be more restrictive than your current policy regime here at the city.
Okay, so just to be clear, in the rural area, because 65% of my, 70% of my ward is rural, so
Right.
I'm very familiar with the rural zoning.
Right.
And I deal with a lot of questions coming into my office asking if they can sever off a piece of their land. My understanding is that the severance policy in the rural area actually is more stricter than the Greenbelt one is.
Correct. So the correct answer to that is really lies in the aspect of jurisdiction, because this council has set those policies in your OP. You also have the ability as a council to change them or modify them on a site-specific basis, or in the future on a more comprehensive basis. If this Greenbelt plan comes in, it will override anything that you do in the future.
Okay, that's fair enough. So just to be clear, that even if you were not included in the Greenbelt, still no development that's allowed?
That is not what we're addressing today. There's no development allowed, and we're addressing specifically, Madam Chair, the whole issue of being unfairly put into the Greenbelt without due process.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that out there because I
Absolutely.
thought this seems to be that if we're in the Greenbelt, well, it's the same for the zoning and the Greenbelt.
Yeah.
But even if you weren't in the Greenbelt, the rules still apply.
The rule still applies.
Right. Okay, so those are my questions and comments. Thank you. I'll take the chair back. No other speakers. May I please have a motion to receive? Councillor Partridge, Councillor Skelly, all those in favor? And thank you again, everyone. Hope you enjoyed your visit. And we'll wait very patiently if you want to leave, or if you want to stick around for the rest of this exciting morning. I'll just hold off for a second. Okay, folks, 8.1, I believe, has been deferred to the next, which I'm really glad. I've met with staff about this, and I found a lot more surprises when I opened up the report. 7, no presentations, so we're going to go on straight to 8.2. Get my glasses on. There's a proposed amendment. So, applications for zoning bylaw amendment for the approval of draft plan for a subdivision known as Springbrook Meadows West Extension for lands located at 296, 304, 312 Springbrook Avenue, Ancaster, PED 16153, Ward 12. This has been referred from July the 5th, 2016. So my understanding is this is the pink sheet we all just got. And this is an amendment. I need a mover and a seconder for this, please. And Councillor Pearson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I will be pleased to move this. Councillor Lloyd Ferguson, the ward councillor, is in full support of this, as well as staff. So the motion is before us, and it's moved by myself, second by Councillor Partridge.
Partridge, thank you. Any questions? Discussion? Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. So now we're on to 8.3. This is the School Crossing Guard Program. Let me get there. Operational efficiencies, PED 15129A, citywide, outstanding business list item. Are there any questions or discussion regarding? Thank you. Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Pasuda. All those in favor? Thank you. Okay, Bill, you're off now. Housekeeping amendment. This is 8.4 to the Hamilton Adequate Heat Bylaw number 04-091 PED 16162 citywide. Folks, I believe that's why Councillor Jackson is here, so we can defer to his comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've been working closely with Marty Hazel, and I don't know if the rest of my colleagues have from time to time had some requests, but I have in the last 2 or 3 years, primarily from seniors and seniors apartment buildings. So this is about currently, and Marty can confirm all this hopefully factually, Madam Chair. So currently our heat bylaw says that a landlord, a property management company, has to keep minimum 20 Celsius degrees heat on for 9 months of the year. And in light of course, what seems to be more regularly hotter, sooner springs that are occurring, hotter, later summers that are enduring, I met with Marty, I've met with staff. This has been about a good year or so in consultation and study and feedback from at least some of the seniors in some of the different apartment buildings in my ward. And so what's here before you is to revise that bylaw, so to reduce the minimum that heat must be on from 9 months to 8 months, which means that we will extend when an air conditioner and cooling within these buildings can come on starting May 15 and keeping it on till September 15. So basically 2 additional weeks in the earlier spring, 2 additional weeks past Labor Day. And again, all because of the climate change, what seems to be hotter, more regular, earlier springs, and what seems to be summers that are now continuing past Labor Day, not just summer, regular, normal summer temperatures, but much hotter summer temperatures. And that's why I just thought with staff support, let's give this a whirl, and I think it will benefit. Many seniors have said to me in my ward, Madam Chair, that come early, mid-May, it is suffocating with the hot earlier springs that are occurring, but the landlords have been defaulting, saying, well, the city bylaw, Councillor Jackson, is what it is, and I got to keep it on minimum for 9 months. And so that's been the conundrum. So, Madam Chair, I'm strongly supportive of this, and Marty can, just through you to Marty, if you can just confirm what I've said in case anything I've left out. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Good morning, Marty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Councillor Jackson has explained it well. This is a sort of the transition time from summer to fall. We don't have too many problems across the city. However, I know Councillor Jackson, we've worked regularly, annually. We have a few problems in his ward. So we have taken a look at it and concur that probably the shorter time is better for residential rental properties to maintain the temperature. And Robert Ustrick, our project manager, who did all the research for this, is available to answer any detailed questions.
Thank you. Councillor? You're satisfied? So I need a mover and a seconder, please. Thank you, everyone. You're welcome, sir. Are there any notices of motions first? None. Thank you. Motions. Councillor Farr, did you wish to present your motion respecting 179, 181, 183, 188 and a half, James Street North.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Chuck Collins, that we waive the application fee for site plan application DA-09-118. This is the acclimation project, 183, 188.5 James Street North, and that the manager of development, planning, heritage, and design be authorized to waive the application fee required for a one-year extension to site plan approval for site plan application at this address. From the applicant's point of view, and this is a relatively minor sum, I can't recall exactly what it is, but I can turn through you to Anita to offer some specifics. But this is presented as by eventualities out of the developer's control. There's been a time lag in the one-year extension, and while close, they felt that that lag were for reasons beyond their control. And so through you, if I may, to offer a more scientific explanation to Anita as to why I'm presenting this here today.
Thank you, Anita.
Excuse me, through the chair to the councillor, I can confirm the fee, and I don't even always recall the exact amount. It's about $1,500 for a one-year extension to a site plan application. And it's my understanding that there have been some delays. Some of those relate to some changes that were made to the site plan, and I believe they had to go through a committee of adjustment application as well. So the owner, through their agent, have requested staff to waive the application. Normally, I have the authority to grant a small extension if they're very close to getting their building permit. In this case, they still do have a number of conditions that would need to be cleared.
Okay, thank you for that explanation. Councillor Farr, you still have the chair.
And just to put everybody at ease, the developer, the Roque family, are very much working at as fast a pace as possible to make this condominium development a reality. So that vacant lot that's fenced in soon be generating many more taxes annually than it is now, and in short order. But this is a relatively small request. I'm hopeful to accommodate, given the venture that's before us, the long-awaited redevelopment that's before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Skelly.
Thank you. I will support through the chair. I have no problem with the request. I'll be supporting that. I'm just curious, though, on the timeline, how quickly do you think we'll see?
I believe that's directed at you.
If you ask the Roque family, yesterday. But very, very soon. There's a lot of work that's been done. So, and you can see that the sales have gone very, very well. The site plan work is well underway, and the diagrams and the drawings that you've seen out there are true to what we can expect. So it's a high-end project that's proven to be very popular in early sales anyway.
Thank you, Councillor. All right, so it's put before you. Councillor Farr, seconded by Councillor Collins. All those in favor? Thank you. General information, Mr. Thorne. Anything special?
Through the chair, no, but maybe just because we had all the delegations today, just to remind committee that the staff report on the provincial plan review is on your agenda for your next meeting. So that's when staff will be reporting back with our recommendations on both growth plan, which Suzanne was primarily speaking to, as well as Greenbelt plan, which which John Corbett was speaking to.
Quick question, just because we received these, should we have not directed them to you? Or is it a given that you've got it?
Through the chair,
it's just a procedural thing for me.
Yes, through the chair, I think it's a given that we've got it. I know Suzanne's presentation is also submitted directly to us, and we've had a lot of correspondence from the Book Road landowners, so they're very much on the record in terms of what their views are.
It's just procedure, folks.
Madam Chair, I recently made a Twitter pledge that I wish to engage on now for the record, very briefly through you to Jason. We're seeing more and more development in downtown Hamilton. With this development, and we're all very, very pleased, we just talked about one a moment ago, comes, unfortunately, more often than I think we need to. We're closing off sidewalks, so we're blocking pedestrian access in a very busy pedestrian area. So I'm not trying to press the issue. I want to just very generally at this point and on the record through you to Jason ask for his good guidance in how we may address this issue and try to mitigate these sidewalk closures in highly pedestrianized areas and what we do maybe now as opposed to what we may contemplate doing in the future to help mitigate. Through you to Jason.
Thank you. Jason?
So through the chair, we do require construction management plans, which is where it's determined where staging areas will be, whether or not lane closures, sidewalk closures are required. Through Tony's group, we are actually looking now at those policies and what the thresholds are. And this issue of sidewalk closures has come up before, so that specifically is one that we're looking at. I say particularly on some of the commercial streets, areas that we've identified as pedestrian prominent streets in our official plan. Those are some of the things we'll be looking at as we start to do a bit of a refresh to our guidelines for construction management plans.
Thank you.
Well, it's not under your purview. Is there an opportunity then as well for me to approach a friend and committee member on Public Works to have them as well take a look at this issue?
Pointing to you.
Yes, through the chair. So specifically to lane closures, sidewalk closures, that's something that is provided by Public Works in terms of what their requirements would be and what they would permit. So certainly if a direction was made through Public Works to have them look at the thresholds by which they determine whether or not a sidewalk closure would be appropriate, that's direction that could be given to PW through Public Works Committee.
Okay, so perhaps I'll formulate a very general motion that my colleagues on Public Works may find appealing enough to bring forward on my behalf. Colleagues better than friend? Okay. Thank you very much. It is increasingly an issue, and we certainly want to see these developments happen, but, you know, some cities, not all. I know I went to Winnipeg, and the True North development is a full block development when I was at FCM, and I think 3 of the 4 sidewalks were blocked because of this major development. But a lot of other cities provide, and we even see it in our city on James Street at Jackson, sidewalk undercover for construction. So I'm going to get to the bottom of this. I'm going to fulfill the pledge that I made on Twitter, and I thanks for our GM for getting me started.
All right. Thank you. Councillor Jackson.
Madam Chair, through to General Manager Thorne, 11.1A outstanding business list and a revised due date of December now from August 16 to December of this year regarding 118 and 338 up to 338 Mountain Brow Boulevard. This is for a protection of the front yard setback and side yard setback of these very beautiful oversized lots along the brow, from about Upper Ottawa, Upper Gage, all the way over to Mohawk. I just only ask because, and Jason, I'm a very, very patient man. I think this goes back to the, Ida caught that, thank you, Ida. I think this goes back to even the times, Jason, when Al Fletcher may have been in the planning area, because Al helped the study and the recommendations, so this might be 3-4 years back. All I would ask, Madam Chair, is the General Manager could let me know who is currently assigned to getting this final report to committee, because the families of these lovely homes who fought for the front yard setback, I think 25 meters minimum, which is 75 feet, to protect those lovely, gorgeous, big front yard homes that you hardly ever get in an urban area anymore, that were under siege a bit from speculators. I'm just asking for some conclusion to this, and if Jason could find out within his staff who's assigned and maybe set up a meeting with me, I'd be grateful.
Thank you.
Yes, through the chair, we'll do that. I believe it's Greg McDonald, but let me confirm that and get back to you. And yes, I do recall at one of your public meetings I was at well over a year ago, this was brought up. So I am aware that you've been very patient, and we will get it in front of committee as soon as we can.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Chair. Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Any other information? Thank you. Can you please refer to the outstanding business list to amend it? Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor Skelly, Councillor Collins, all those in favor. We have no private and confidential, so folks, I need the big A. Adjournment. Thank you. Big A. So we've